Hey everyone, we're going to be making a glove mold today. Things we're going to need: a master model, a flat surface to mount our master, some double-sided tape to hold the master to the surface, some Sculpey to seal around the base, a hobby knife, disposable brushes, some cups, mold release, isopropyl alcohol, and 2 contrasting pigments. You may also want some silicone thickener and thinner as well. First, we're going to clean the base and the surface we are mounting the master to. Put some double-sided tape on the base and press it down firmly. Now we're going to seal any gaps around the base. Roll out the Sculpey to a nice long snake. Then we're going to squish it down into the gaps along the base. And if there's any excess Sculpey, just trim it away. And clean up any mess with isopropyl alcohol. Now clean up your master with alcohol as well, as anything on the surface will show up in the mold. And we're going to spray down the master as well as the surface with mold release. Be sure to get every surface, including every nook and cranny. Now grab a brush and pull out any of those loose bristles. We don't want these sticking to the surface. Here we're going to mix up about 50 grams of silicone and add some white pigment. We're going to brush it down on the surface in a light, thin coat. We're going to jump right into the process for now, but we'll come back to the silicone and talk about it in a minute. Take care to cover everything, but don't try to build up any thickness at this point. We just want to coat the entire surface. Now set a timer for about half of the total cure time. This is just an estimate because we'll be testing before we add the next layer. To check whether your silicone is ready for the next layer, touch the silicone with the back of your fingernail. If it comes away cleanly, then we're ready for our next layer. Now we're going to add our second layer. And we want it to be just a little more viscous than the first one. Because it's a little more viscous, and we want this layer to be a little thicker, we'll mix up about 60 grams of silicone. Using contrasting colors for each layer will make it easier to see that we've completely covered each layer. Brush it all over and make sure you cover all the white silicone from the last layer. We're going to do layer 3 like we did the last 2 layers. A little thicker viscosity, a bit more silicone, in this case about 70 grams, and a contrasting pigment. Now let's talk about the silicone itself. You want a fast curing, platinum cured silicone for this. Something with a pot life of about 5 minutes and a cure time of about 30 minutes works nicely. If the pot life and cure time are too long, it'll take forever to get the mold made. Smooth-On has their very fast version of the Dragon Skin tin, and that is a pretty good option. You may want some silicone thinner for the first coat or two, and then maybe some silicone thickener for the later coats. Do keep in mind that these can have an effect on your pot life and cure times, as will the temperature. Layer 4 is even more viscous and comes in at around 80 grams. At about the 5th layer, we're really cranking up the viscosity. We really want the silicone to stay where we put it and not slide down the vertical surfaces. With each layer, we are wanting to build up the thickness along the model. The flat flange will pretty much take care of itself at this point. We want the majority of the silicone to go on the model. Also, build up any areas that might be high stress. In this case, the head is slightly bigger than the shaft, so I'm adding a little extra to the mold behind the head so that when we pull the model out, it doesn't tear because of the larger head. Once it's fully cured, we can start to remove the model. Here I used 6 layers, but you may need more. If you have a larger model, you may need more layers to keep the mold from distorting under the weight of your silicone when you pour it into the mold. Pop the base off and start to break the mold loose from your master. Once it's completely loose, you can start to pull the master out. Twisting and pulling usually works pretty well. Now, I have some extra bits of Sculpey around the base, so those need to be cleaned up. I'm also going to trim down the flange. It's much larger than necessary and will just get in the way. You can use a flashlight to check for any really thin spots. I see a couple on this one, but they aren't thin enough for me to worry about. The final step is to trim away any silicone that might have seeped under the master. I'm using a cuticle tool to trim away some of that excess. Now add some mold release and pour your first test. Make sure there aren't any bubbles or other flaws hiding in places that you can't see them.